Hey everyone, in the last video we went over the physical components of a network. In this video, we're going to continue our journey through the networking fundamentals and talk about the OSI model and the TCPIP model. It's very important that we go through this now because these models show how network traffic is classified and the order of operations of networking. Let's begin. If you have questions on this or any of my topics, you can always comment below or follow me on my Instagram at @NinjaGore. Okay guys, so now that I have my highly sophisticated paint app up, let's begin. So the OSI model, the Open Systems Interconnection Model, is a conceptual network model composed of 7 layers. All networking is categorized in one of these layers. As I mentioned earlier, this is a conceptual model. This isn't used in the real world, although we reference it all the time. The TCPIP model, which we'll get to later, is what is used in the real world, but we can't get through that without first learning the OSI model. Let's break down the layers. Okay, so the first layer, well actually the 7th layer, is known as the application layer. And the application layer is just what it says. These are the applications themselves that run on your computer. These are things like HTTP, FTP, Telnet, SMTP, and some things you might know a little more like Discord, Steam, etc. This is the layer that humans interact with. Okay, so there. Coming in at number 6 is the presentation layer. The job of the presentation layer is a little esoteric. What it does is that it formats the data from the lower levels, which we'll see later, into a syntax that the application layer can understand. So it pretty much takes the networky part of traffic and turns it into code that applications can interpret. This layer also handles data encryption and decryption. The session layer manages and segregates the different connections between computers. The best way for me to explain this is to have you open 2 tabs in Chrome and go to Facebook on each tab. It's the same website to the same computer, but each tab is a separate dialog. So you can say the session layer is responsible for starting, stopping, managing, and restarting different streams of connections. Now the transport layer, it mainly deals with ports. So you may have heard, even though you may not be in networking yet, you may have heard stuff about port numbers and whatever. Whenever you hear port numbers, think transport layer. It's the act of transmitting and segmenting data from one end to another. It controls how much data to send, how to segment the data, whether the data is reliable or unreliable, and other stuff. TCP and UDP, which means Transmission Control Protocol and User Datagram Protocol, respectively, which we'll learn about in another video, would fall into this category. Most traffic uses a source TCP or UDP port and a destination TCP or UDP port of some kind. Now, the network layer is pretty simple to explain. It consists of routing. Network is routing, and routing is networking. It is responsible for being the map or the path from one place to another in the network, within the or between networks. So you can think of the transport layer as the car. You can think of the network layer as both the roads and the map, if that makes any sense. Okay, and the second layer is the data link layer. Now we're getting basic. This layer is the actual linking and data transfer between 2 physical devices. It handles error correction on the physical layer, and it has 2 parts. It has the media access control, or the MAC layer, which controls how devices gain access to the network medium. The network medium being, via a switch or wireless access point or network cable or whatever. And then there's the logical link control layer, which identifies and conforms to network protocols and provides error checking. Now, lastly, there's the physical layer. The physical layer is the things that you can see, touch, or detect. Now we're talking about the computer, the network cables, the switches and the routers, the electricity that goes through the cables, the light that goes through fiber optic cables, wireless waves from your cell phones and your laptops to the wireless access points, The physical layer is the real world. Here we have the 7 layers of the OSI model and a bit of a shorthand as to what it actually, I forgot some. Let's pretend I actually know how to do parentheses here. So yeah, so these are the 7 layers. Now these are written from 7 down to 1 for a reason that we're about to get into right away, because now we are going to talk about how how data uses the OSI model to get from one endpoint to another, and we're going to use a bit of an analogy. Okay, so this is how 2 network devices use the OSI model to talk to each other conceptually. So a computer will follow the OSI steps in order to create the, in order to create the packet or the electricity to send across the network. It will go through all these steps, take the application data, it will turn it to network data, it will open the connection with the other computer, it will decide how to transport it, it will figure out how to get there, and then it will send the actual electricity out to the wireless access point or switch, whatever. So when sending data out, a computer will follow this direction through the OSI model, and then it will travel over the internet or wherever it needs to go, and then when the other computer is ready to receive it, it will go back up the OSI model until it gets to the application, who then displays it on the computer. So let's say you're at your office of work and you want to ship a letter to someone in another location. You have your letter, which is the data. You will then need to put your letter into an envelope, and then you need to take the envelope to your mailbox. The mailman, he comes, so mailman comes, he picks up the letter, and he takes it to the post office. The post office then figures out where it needs to go. So that's the network layer. It figures out how to get to the destination PO, and then it figures out where it needs to go to get there. It figures out the best way to route it to the city or whatever, and it routes it to the destination PO. At that point, the mailman at the other side, he takes the letter, takes it there, he takes it to your mailbox, he drops out the letter at the mailbox, you take the envelope, the other person takes the envelope out of the mailbox, and then they take out the letter. So the same process here is the process that devices use when transmitted data using the OSI model. So now that you have an understanding of the OSI model, it'll make it much easier now for you to understand the real-world version, the TCPIP model. So this, my friends, is a TCPIP model. The biggest difference is that in reality, the application controls the presentation and the session layers. All this presentation and session layer stuff is good in theory, but in the real world, the application controls all of that. It controls the sessions, it controls how to format the data. The application layer controls all of that. The transport layer is the same, although it is referred to as the internet layer. Now, depending on who writes it, it can also be referred to as the transport layer. The second layer is the network layer, and it's the same as the network layer over here. The first layer of the TCP/IP model is the network interface layer, and that combines both the data link layer and the physical layer. In the real world, even though that the TCP/IP model is what's used, when referring to networking, we will almost always use the OSI model. Whenever you hear layer 7 firewalls, for example, we're talking firewalls that can block traffic based on this application. When we talk about layer 2 traffic, we're referring to switching traffic that doesn't leave its network. We call it layer 3 traffic when we talk about IPs and routing, basically traffic that goes from one network to another. Anyways, guys, I want to thank you guys for watching. I know this is very low budget, but it's what I'm working with. The information is what matters. So hopefully you guys are learning something. In the next video, we're going to start talking about basic networking, how one device talks to another device. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.